Boeing is estimating that air and cargo traffic in the African continent will have the third fastest growth rate worldwide over the next 2 decades. South and Southeast Asia are pretty much right at the top of those growth estimates, with traffic growth estimated to grow by around 7% per year in those two regions. Now, to meet estimated demand in Africa, however, Boeing reckons African airlines will be adding roughly 60 aircraft a year to their existing fleets. That works out around 1,200 aircraft between now and 2043. At the moment, airlines are limiting the number of older planes that they're retiring and getting out of the fleet simply because there aren't enough new planes coming into the market at the moment. But what's the outlook for new supply? Well, Boeing is estimating that most, just under 71%, of the new aircraft being added to African fleets in the next 2 decades will be single-aisle jets like the 737 MAX. Now, we're already seeing rapid growth in aviation component exports from countries like Morocco and Ethiopia. But what exactly is the outlook for having a lot more of those components made here in Africa? I put that question to Anbessie Yitbarek, the Vice President of Commercial Airplane Sales at Boeing. I started our conversation by exploring exactly what would be driving that growth in passenger and cargo traffic on the continent.
Boeing Outlook projects that intra-Africa passenger traffic alone will be more than quadruple in the next 20 years. To support that, of course, we need almost 1,170 new airplanes to support this growth in the next 20 years. Of that, about the single aisle, the MAX type, will be a major portion. About 70% of deliveries will be the MAX size airplanes, supporting mostly intra-regional connectivity.
And the domestic training capacity for a lot of these, ground crew, airplane crew, plus pilots, engineers, and so on and so forth, a lot of that domestic training capacity either is insufficient to meet current and future demand.
Today's, yes, it's insufficient, but we need to train a lot more. We see energy from many stakeholders. Ethiopia is expanding its training capability into, aviation university and increasing their throughput, I think, twice and 3 times in the last 5-6 years. That helps. We see in South Africa all kinds of training institutes increasing their capacity, in North Africa as well, in Kenya and so on. So there is still more to be done, but I think the trend is up to, in the right direction.
In the name of, focusing on diversification of, where a lot of these components that you need to put together one of these aircraft is concerned, I know there's some small-scale manufacturing that's already taking place for some of your component suppliers in various countries here in Africa. But do you see a potential to expand that, to expand the facilities that are already working on feeding components back into the factories over in the United States, be they in Morocco, be they in Ethiopia, or any of the other markets on the continent?
Definitely. We believe Africa presents significant opportunities for aerospace manufacturing and in supply chain diversification. We are actively working with partners in African companies and develop not only MROs and technical capability, but parts manufacturing as well. I think with the right investment and in skills and infrastructure, we believe Africa can play a growing role in aerospace supply chain. Like you said, Morocco, over the last 10 years, Morocco has expanded its aviation manufacturing ecosystem. We bring a lot of our suppliers and to work in Morocco. They established, they come up with, very, optimistic investment plan. And there is a lot of jobs already created, a lot of manufacturing awarded to Moroccan companies. Ethiopia, the same thing. We start with wire harness and insulation blankets and so on. They want to, expand on that, and we're working with them. Another one is South Africa. South Africa has been doing airframe parts production. I think they can do a lot more with the capability and the appetite over there.
Speaking of supply chain issues, we're now seeing the return of tariffs on key components that you need to essentially build an aircraft, steel and aluminium as well. 25% tariffs likely to come into effect. How are these likely to affect the end cost for carriers here who will be saying, well, I'd like to buy a 737 MAX, But, if you're having 25% tariffs being slapped in on the input material, is that a cost increase that they might be able to absorb?
Well, I wouldn't say that now, because as you can see, I hear this, from the media, like everybody. I don't have any detail, but I see things changing on a daily basis. So until we know for sure the final situation, it's very hard to know. We've been in this situation before, and the impact at one point was not that much because it was not long lasting. So I hope it will be avoided, but it's too early to say.